Hello and welcome to Inspiring Perth Academy.
Our guest today is one of the best stand-up comedians in Scotland right now. His Netflix specials Dark and Jigsaw have garnered worldwide acclaim, and he is now an established stand-up comedian. He is none other than Daniel Sloss.
Daniel, it's great to have you on the show with us.
Thank you very, very much for having me. It's very exciting to be here.
You actually have a link to Perth Academy, I believe, Daniel. Are you aware of this link?
I assume it's to do with my blood relatives, my cousins.
It is indeed.
Yes. One of the other reasons why I definitely said yes to this, because I'm such a bad older cousin that when you were like, oh, we're going to interview you for Perth Academy, I was like, oh my God, Ailey and Sarah go there, fully forgetting that they're both 18 and 21 respectively and no longer attend the school.
That wasn't even the link I was thinking of.
What's the other link apart from my blood relatives then?
Is your uncle Reverend Burton by any chance?
Oh yes,
yeah,
of course, yes, yeah. Well, yeah, my uncle Scott. I've got a joke about him in my stand-up. One of my earliest bits was about my 5'2" uncle, and we all called him a mini star. Like I've done that joke on television quite a few times, and I mean he took it very well.
For the viewers watching, I think maybe if you're in about 4th to 6th year, you may remember Reverend Burton. He left about 2 years ago, I think. So me and Tom certainly remember him.
So steering away from that and going back to you, we're just wondering, how did you get into comedy?
Well, I've been a fan of stand-up since I was very, very young. My mum and dad met at Edinburgh University and they lived in London for a bit. And they happened to live by a comedy club called Screaming Blue Murder, where the regular host was Eddie Izzard. And when he couldn't do it, it was like Phil Dupuis or Mark Lamar. And they saw so many comedians get their breaks or like do their first gigs there. So they've always loved stand-up. And I always loved making my parents laugh. It was a very big, important part of our family, about being funny, making each other laugh. And I remember one night, I can't remember how old I was, but I think it was like a weekend, and my bedtime during the week was like 8 o'clock, but my bedtime at the weekends was later. It was like 9 or 10 or something. And I remember I'd been sent to bed, and my parents were downstairs, and I could hear my dad laughing, and I could hear my mum laughing, and they were laughing really hard. And I was like, what is it that's making them laugh? I have to know what's making them laugh that hard. So I faked being ill, as a teenager you're very good at doing. You know, you just fake, oh, my tummy hurts, oh, I feel blah. I wasn't a teenager at this point, I was about 10. But I come downstairs and they're just watching live at the Apollo. And I didn't understand any of the jokes. It was Jack D on the telly, but he was swearing. And to me, that was the funniest thing in the world. Like the fact that there was a grown man on stage swearing and people were applauding him. I was like, what's that job? That looks class. That's amazing. And then I just started watching stand-up more and more and more, really getting into it. And then never really made the connection that I could do it. Just thought it would be something that I enjoyed. It never really felt like I'd be able to dip my toes into it. But then my mum happened to meet Frankie Boyle at a corporate gig that he was doing for her company. And she went up to him and was like, my son's a massive fan of yours. He's desperate to be a stand-up. Do you have any advice for him at all? And he gave her his email address and then got in contact with me, sort of took me under his wing for a bit during the Fringe to meet other comedians, and then managed to get me a gig at the Stand. And then I kind of just did it. And then from then on, it was just about meeting the right people and what, I mean, I truly never thought I'd make a living out of it. Like this is very exciting and fun at this point in life. But yeah, it was just, I don't know, just a gamble. I sort of felt, I was like, I'll give this a go, see if this works. And if not, who knows?
Comedy is quite an unconventional career path. So we're just wondering what your advice would be to young people who want to go down that route.
If you want to go down the unconventional route, I mean, I love my job. I love my job more than anything in the world. And it sounds like such a cliche thing to say, but it is true. If you do something that you love, it makes your life 1,000 times easier because you don't dread work. You've got a passion for it. And, work's a big part of your life most of the time. So if it can be something that you enjoy, then it just makes your life 1,000 times easier. Comedy-wise was a bit more difficult. My parents were dead nice about it because their main thing to me was you still have to get into university. Like, obviously, we support you. If that's your dream, if that's what you want to do, absolutely we'll support you. But you do have to get a degree, just because it's the world we live in. You need to prove that you can learn and apply knowledge and retain information and argue well. And that's why I had to do well in my exams. But I was still doing stand-up at school, like when I was in 6th year. And they would drive me to my gigs, and then I'd come back and do my homework and go into school the next day. And I did get into university. Edinburgh University laughed in my face. Like, they didn't physically laugh in my face, but the rejection was very much, they were like, who are you kidding? We've seen your exam results. In what world are you coming to the capital city's university? You can go to Dundee. That's where you belong. And Dundee said yes. And Dundee's a great university. I would have loved to have gone there, especially for the history courses. But my mum had sort of suggested to me that I take a gap here before university as opposed to after university, just to really sort of give stand-up my all for a year, and then if stand-up failed, I could always go back to university. But thankfully that never really happened. If people are interested in getting in stand-up, though, the one bit of advice I give: the only difference between you and a stand-up comedian is a stand-up comedian has gotten on stage. Like, that's the real advice. Is nobody's good the first time, nobody's good the 5th time, nobody's good the 10th time. You're going to suck for a very long time, and you have to get used to sucking. The more you are on stage, the better you become at it. And the sooner you go for it, the longer you'll do it. I'm 30 years old now, but thankfully I started when I was 16. So I've been doing this almost half my life already, and that's a huge advantage. And nobody remembers how rubbish I was when I was 16, 17, 18, and I was rubbish. Like, people laugh, but only because I was confident and I swore, like the same things I'd learned. But my advice to everyone in this is just get into it. If you want to do it, do it. Sign yourself up to a course. Sign yourself up to a comedy night. Start writing jokes now, and then the sooner you get started, the sooner you'll start improving. And then you're part of it.
I think it's great advice. And I think maybe because of the fact that you started so young, you actually got success, in your early 20s, which is quite rare, I guess. And then, me and Tom were looking at the facts earlier. You were on Conan O'Brien when you were like 22, 23, something like that. So was that a bit mad, getting that success so young?
But my career has its peaks and troughs, but on a gradual uprise. So it's like I was given a lot of breaks early on because I was young, I was confident, and I was arguably attractive. So I was a little box ticker, right? They were like, yeah, young, he's Scottish, good. Well, and I was given certain breaks that better comedians weren't afforded just because of diversity laws. But I made sure that every one of those opportunities that I really sort of smashed, I was like, I'm going to do as best as I can. It's not my fault for being given the opportunities, but it's my responsibility to, when I get given an opportunity, is to do my best. If nothing happens from it, fine, but I won't be able to live with myself unless I know that I put 100% of myself into it, and then whatever happens at that point. If it sucks, fine. If it's brilliant, great. But I did my best. And that kind of worked for me for a bit. But I kept doing a lot of stuff like the Paul O'Grady show, and then I did 8 out of 10 Cats, and then I did Michael McIntyre's Comedy Roadshow. And because TV's edited, a lot of my stand-up was becoming edited, and I'm not a family-friendly comedian. But when you do primetime television, you have to be a family-friendly comedian. So I started doing jokes that were more friendly, and then people would come to my live shows, and I'd be talking about, atheism, I'd be talking about sex, I'd be talking about booze, I'd be talking about, just rude, dark subjects, death. And people in those shows who'd seen me on television would then come and see my live shows and be like, oh my God, he's horrible in real life. This is, he swears, he's rude, he's talking about drugs. Oh my God. So there was a weird bit in my career when I wasn't doing television at all because I didn't want any more people to see me on television doing family-friendly stuff. Because I didn't want to go through that experience again of people coming to see a nice version of me and then just getting the real me. So I said to my agent in a move that I don't think any other comedian has done, least of all another agent would accept. Like when I was 21, I said to my agent, I don't want to do television anymore. I just want to focus on stand-up. If the TV won't let me do the jokes I want to do, I don't want to be on it. And that's, you know, career suicide almost. You know, you've got to be on or people think you have to be on television to have success. Thankfully, she was great about it. She understood. She was like, take your time, go and do what you need to do to become as good as you can. And then thankfully in those years, Conan O'Brien's booker, a lovely man called JP Buck, was in the Edinburgh Festival, and he caught me doing one of my actual shows where it was just me being myself. And he was like, would you like to do Conan? And I was like, shut up. What are you talking about? Don't, like, let's not. Come on now. I'm from Fife. Let's be real here. Like, there's nobody from Fife has ever been on Conan. And it's very much not going to be me for the first time. But he was like, no, it'd be great. And then we flew over. And the whole time I didn't think it was going to happen. I was waiting for it to be like a prank. I was waiting for somebody to just like I land in LA and they were like, oh, really? You thought you were going to be on Conan, you little moron. No, psych. But nobody's there. We get to the airport. It's all good. And then it's the morning of Conan. And I'm so excited. I'm like, oh my God, this is going to be huge. This is amazing. And there's nothing today's the day. There's nothing that'll stop me being on Conan. And then Nelson Mandela died. And I woke up to the news of Nelson Mandela and I'm like, no, not even because of everything that he did, but like, there's not going to be Conan tonight. Nelson Mandela's dead. The world is in mourning. They're obviously going to cancel the show. And it was sure enough, they phone up Conan and be like, just to let you know, Nelson Mandela's died. I'm like, oh, let me guess, I'm not on the show. And they're like, no, you selfish narcissist. No. There's just going to be longer at the start where we do a tribute to Nelson. And I was like, oh, that makes sense. He was a good guy, and his life is certainly more important than my career. I'm very sorry.
And finally, just wrapping up these longer questions, what message would you give to the pupils of Perth Academy in these difficult times?
Oh, I mean, I don't have any advice. I just have genuine admiration. I think to myself how much this lockdown and this pandemic has taken a toll on me and my mental health. And I've gone through my own sort of journey in the past year, understanding like, where do I fit into the world? Like, what do we do in this unprecedented time? And it can be worrying, sincere, genuine worry for long periods. And I'm an adult. I'm meant to have my stuff together, and I do. But even for me, this has been very, very challenging and tough. And I can't imagine going through it during my informative years. I can't imagine these years when you don't get to see your friends face to face. You don't get to go out and make the same mistakes. I mean, maybe that's a good thing, but I doubt it in the long run. I'm genuine admiration. I cannot imagine how difficult it has been to lose these crucial years of your life and have them in such a different way. And the fact that you're all still working and the fact that you're all still going to school, I can't imagine sitting in an online class. Like, it must be the weirdest thing in the world. But you did it. You did it despite every hurdle that was put in front of you. You stuck with it. And I sincerely hope that when the world does go back to normal, which it will do, that you get your life back, and that also this wasn't too much of a black spot in it.
Right, with that, we will move on to the quickfire questions.
Who are your top 3 comedy inspirations?
Ed Byrne. I've always got to throw Ed Byrne in there. He was the reason I got into comedy. He was the one I loved when I was younger. I thought he was phenomenal. Bill Burr just is one of my favorites now. He's one of the greats. And also Dave Chappelle as well, just because it's Dave Chappelle. And if anyone who doesn't have Dave Chappelle on their list is wrong.
What is your favourite place in the world to do stand-up?
Oh, excellent question. Oh, God. And this is when it gets controversial. Where's my favourite place to do stand-up? Australia's pretty great. I can't specify one area there. Otherwise, surprisingly, Austria, Vienna. They love comedy in Vienna to a degree that you wouldn't expect.
What's one thing you want to do but you've never had the chance?
What's that charity football match they do with celebrities every year?
Oh, Soccer Aid.
Soccer Aid. And now, I'm garbage at football. Like, I was fine in high school and I haven't played since. but I haven't updated my opinion of myself playing football since then either. So I still think I'm class, and I'm absolutely garbage. And I think there'd be nothing funnier in the world than just going to Wembley and getting nutmegged by Ollie Murs.
What do you think you would be if you weren't a comedian?
Oh, depressed. God, what would I be? I hope I would have applied myself, and I imagine I would have stuck to the history degree at Dundee University, and then ended up being a. God, what do historians become? Yeah, I mean, guess just historians. Something boring, man.
Well, with that, we come to the end of the interview. Daniel, thank you so much again for coming on.
Oh, genuine pleasure. Thanks for reaching out.
Next week, we'll be joined by Michelin star chef Tom Kitchen. You can follow us on Twitter at AcademySPLT, on Instagram at Perth Academy SPLT. Thank you very much, and we will see you next week.